Have you ever wondered why some decisions feel harder than they should? Why certain opportunities seem out of reach? Or why you hold back even when you really want to move forward? It might not be the situation itself. It could be the hidden beliefs shaping your choices. Today, we'll explore 8 negative beliefs that secretly influence your life decisions. These beliefs often operate quietly in the background, shaping how we think, act, and respond. But the good news is, once you uncover and challenge them, you can free yourself from their grip and take back control of your life. This isn't just about recognizing these beliefs. It's about learning how to replace them with more empowering ones. Using insights from Stoicism and the wisdom of Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, and Epictetus, we'll discuss practical ways to break free from these mental traps. Imagine what it would feel like to live with clarity, purpose, and confidence, knowing you're no longer held back by limiting thoughts. Before we continue, I'd like to invite you to subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. Hit the notification bell so you never miss our videos on Stoicism, personal growth, and mindset. If you find this video valuable, give it a like and share it with someone who might need this message too. Now let me ask you, what if the beliefs you're holding on to are the very things standing between you and the life you want? Let's uncover them together. Belief number 1. I'm not good enough. Have you ever stopped yourself from trying something new because deep down you felt you weren't good enough? Maybe it was a job you wanted to apply for, a skill you were eager to learn, or even a conversation you wanted to start. That little voice creeps in, whispering things like, "You're not smart enough, experienced enough, or talented enough." And just like that, the opportunity slips away. This belief, "I'm not good enough," is something almost all of us have experienced at some point. It's a quiet yet persistent thought that tells us we're lacking in some way. But here's the truth. It's not a reflection of who we are. It's a story we've told ourselves, one that's been shaped by past experiences, fears, and often unrealistic comparisons to others. Think about how this belief can limit your life. You might pass up an opportunity because you convince yourself you'll fail before you even begin. Or maybe you hold back from sharing your ideas or pursuing a passion because you think someone else could do it better. Over time, this belief becomes a habit, a pattern that stops you from exploring your potential and experiencing personal growth. So where does this belief come from? It could be a single comment someone made years ago that stuck with you. Maybe you grew up comparing yourself to others or felt pressure to meet impossible standards. These influences build up, turning into a critical inner voice that questions your worth at every turn. But here's the thing. This belief isn't rooted in reality. It's not a fact. It's just a thought, a perception that you have the power to change. Marcus Aurelius, one of the great Stoic philosophers, reminds us, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. What this means is simple. While we can't control what others say or think about us, we can control how we respond to those thoughts. And this includes the way we interpret our own inner dialogue. Instead of measuring yourself against unrealistic standards, Stoicism encourages you to focus on what's within your control, your effort, your actions, and your willingness to learn. True worth isn't about being perfect or meeting someone else's expectations. It's about showing up, trying your best, and growing from the experience. Let me share a practical example. Imagine there's a presentation at work that you've been asked to lead. Your first thought might be, "I'm not experienced enough to do this." So you spend days worrying, convincing yourself that someone else would do a better job. But then, think about what happens if you shift your focus. Instead of obsessing over how others might judge you, you concentrate on preparing your points, practicing, and improving as you go. Whether the presentation is flawless or not doesn't matter as much as the fact that you face the challenge head-on. This shift, from worrying about outcomes to focusing on effort, is one of the core teachings of Stoicism. As Seneca once said, it is not because things are difficult that we do not dare, it is because we do not dare that they are difficult. In other words, taking the first step is often the hardest part, but it's also where growth begins. Now let's talk about how to reframe this belief in your daily life. The next time you hear that critical voice saying, "I'm not good enough," take a moment to question it. Ask yourself, good enough for what? By whose standards? Often, we set unrealistic expectations for ourselves that no one could meet. By questioning these thoughts, you start to see them for what they are, temporary and unhelpful. Another strategy is to shift your focus from outcomes to actions. Instead of asking yourself if you're good enough to achieve something, ask yourself if you're willing to put in the effort. This is where your real power lies. You can't always control the outcome, but you can control how you show up. For example, let's say you've always wanted to learn a new skill, like playing an instrument or writing a book. Instead of worrying about whether you'll be good enough at it, focus on starting small. Take a lesson, write a paragraph, or simply practice consistently. Progress builds confidence, not the other way around. I understand that this can feel daunting. Challenging long-held beliefs is never easy, and it's natural to feel uncertain along the way. But remember, every time you take a step forward, no matter how small, you're proving that belief wrong. Let me ask you something. When was the last time you held yourself back because you didn't think you were good enough? How did it make you feel, and what would you do differently now? Take a moment to reflect on that. If you're comfortable, share your experience in the comments. It might inspire someone else who's facing the same struggle. You are not defined by your doubts. The belief that you're not good enough is just that, a belief. It's a story you've been telling yourself, but it's not the whole story. With effort, self-compassion, and a willingness to try, you can rewrite it. So the next time you hear that voice of doubt creeping in, pause and remind yourself, I am not here to be perfect. I am here to grow. Let that be your guiding thought as you move forward. You're more capable than you think, and every small step proves it. Let's start rewriting that story together, one step at a time. Belief number 2, success equals external validation. How often do we chase applause instead of true fulfillment? It's such a common experience, pushing ourselves to achieve something, not because it brings us joy or aligns with our values, but because we hope it will impress someone else. Maybe it's a promotion we didn't really want, a project we took on just to gain approval, or even the way we curate our lives on social media for likes and comments. This belief that success is only real if others recognize it is deeply ingrained in many of us. And while it might give us a temporary high when we get that validation, it often leaves us feeling empty in the long run. Think about it. When we base our sense of achievement on external approval, we give away our power. We start measuring success by someone else's standards, and the moment their attention fades, so does our satisfaction. It's like building a house on sand, unstable and exhausting to maintain. This belief doesn't just affect how we feel, it impacts how we live. It can lead to overworking, burnout, and constantly seeking the next thing to prove our worth. Imagine someone who stays late at the office every night, not because they're passionate about their work, but because they're afraid their boss will think they're not dedicated enough. Or someone who constantly posts their accomplishments online, waiting for likes and comments to feel like they matter. These behaviors don't bring true fulfillment. They're just coping mechanisms to fill a void created by this belief. But let's pause for a moment and ask, what is success really? Is it a title, a salary, or the approval of others? Or is it something deeper, something more personal? The Stoics offer us a powerful perspective here. Epictetus reminds us, freedom is the only worthy goal in life. It is won by disregarding things that lie beyond our control. What he's saying is that true success comes not from external applause, but from living in alignment with your own values and focusing on what you can control. You can't control whether people approve of you, praise you, or even notice your efforts. But you can control the effort itself. You can control the integrity with which you approach your work, the kindness you show to others, and the way you pursue your goals. These are the things that truly matter, the things that no one can take away from you. Let's consider a real-life example. Imagine someone who's a talented artist but chooses to work a corporate job because they believe it's the only way to gain respect. They spend years climbing the ladder, achieving promotions and recognition from their peers, but deep down they feel unfulfilled. Why? Because their success wasn't rooted in their own values. It was built on the need for external validation. Now, compare that to an artist who creates because it brings them joy, regardless of whether anyone notices. Their work might not win awards or go viral, but it aligns with their values, and that brings them peace. The key is understanding that external validation is fleeting. No matter how much applause you receive, it will never be enough if you're not truly connected to what you're doing. It's like pouring water into a bucket with a hole in the bottom. It will never stay full. Now, I'm not saying it's wrong to want recognition. It's natural to want others to see and appreciate your efforts. But the question is, are you chasing recognition at the expense of your own fulfillment? Are you making choices that align with your values, or are you sacrificing those values to gain approval? One way to break free from this belief is to redefine what success means to you. Instead of measuring it by how others respond, measure it by how closely your actions align with your principles. For example, if honesty is one of your values, success might look like having the courage to speak your truth, even when it's uncomfortable. If creativity is important to you, success might look like dedicating time each day to your craft, regardless of the outcome. Another practice is to focus on the process rather than the result. The Stoics believed in doing your best and letting go of the rest. Marcus Aurelius put it beautifully. Don't worry about what others are doing. Do your own work well, without hesitation. In other words, let the quality of your effort be your measure of success, not the applause it receives. Take a moment to reflect. When was the last time you pursued something because it aligned with your values, not because it would impress others? How did that feel compared to when you did something solely for external recognition? Chances are the former brought you a sense of peace and satisfaction that the latter never could. If this belief resonates with you, I invite you to consider this. What does success mean to you? Not what society says, not what your family or friends think, but you. What would your life look like if you defined success on your own terms? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Share your definition of success in the comments below, and let's start a conversation about what it truly means to live a fulfilling life. Remember, success isn't something others give you. It's something you create for yourself. When you align your actions with your values and let go of the need for external validation, you'll discover a deeper, more lasting sense of fulfillment. And that kind of success? It's worth far more than any applause. Belief number 3, I need to control everything. Do you ever feel anxious when things don't go exactly as planned? Maybe it's a work project that veers off course, a relationship that doesn't unfold the way you expected, or even something small, like a cancelled flight or unexpected traffic. That sinking feeling, the tightening in your chest. It's the discomfort of realizing that some things are simply out of your control. And for many of us, that discomfort fuels a deep desire to grab the reins tighter, to try harder, to make things bend to our will. The belief, I need to control everything, is deceptively exhausting. At first, it might feel empowering, like you're taking charge of your life. But over time, it becomes a heavy burden, leading to constant frustration and anxiety. Why? Because no matter how hard we try, life will always throw curveballs. Plans will change, people will act in ways we don't expect, and events will unfold beyond our influence. Think about a time when you meticulously planned something only to watch it fall apart. Maybe you organized an important meeting at work, only for a technical issue to derail everything. Or perhaps you planned the perfect weekend with a loved one, but unexpected weather ruined your outdoor plans. In those moments, the harder you try to force things back into place, the more stressed and helpless you feel. The belief that you can, or should, control everything is a recipe for endless frustration. It sets you up to fight against the natural flow of life, which is inherently unpredictable. And when you hold yourself to this impossible standard, even small disruptions can feel like personal failures. The Stoics offer us a different way to think about control, one that brings clarity and peace rather than stress. It's called the dichotomy of control, and it's beautifully simple. The idea is this: there are things you can control, and there are things you cannot. Your energy should go toward the former, and the latter, let it go. Epictetus put it best when he said, "Some things are up to us, and some things are not. What's up to us? Our thoughts, actions, and choices. What's not? The actions of others, the outcomes of events, and anything influenced by forces beyond our reach." By focusing on what you can control, your effort, your mindset, you free yourself from the constant struggle against things you can't change. Let's break this down with a practical example. Imagine you're managing a big project at work. You've planned every detail, coordinated with your team, and worked tirelessly to ensure success. But then, on the day of the presentation, the internet goes down or a key team member gets sick. The outcome is now beyond your control. You have two choices: spiral into frustration, blaming yourself or the situation, or pivot your focus to what you can do, like calmly communicating with your team, adjusting the presentation, or rescheduling if needed. The first option leaves you drained and defeated. The second, it empowers you to act with clarity and composure, even in the face of unexpected challenges. That's the power of practicing the dichotomy of control. Of course, letting go of the need to control everything doesn't mean you stop caring. It doesn't mean you resign yourself to passivity or apathy. It simply means shifting your focus to the things that truly matter, the things you have the power to influence. When you release the rest, you make room for peace and perspective. This applies to relationships too. How often do we try to control how others feel or act? Maybe you've bent over backward to make someone happy, only to feel disappointed when they don't respond the way you hoped. Or perhaps you've found yourself replaying a conflict in your mind, wishing you could control how the other person reacts or feels. The truth is, you can't control another person's thoughts or emotions. What you can control is how you show up, your honesty, kindness, and willingness to communicate. The rest is up to them. I know this isn't easy. Letting go of control can feel unsettling, especially if you're used to holding on tightly. But it's a practice, not a one-time decision. Each time you encounter something beyond your influence, remind yourself, this is not within my control, but my response is. Over time, this mindset becomes second nature, and the weight of trying to manage the unmanageable starts to lift. So let me ask you, what's one thing in your life right now that you're trying to control, even though it's beyond your influence? Maybe it's someone else's opinion, the outcome of a situation, or even just the pace at which things are happening. Take a moment to reflect. What would happen if you let it go? If you focused instead on what you can control, your actions, your attitude, your perspective? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Share one thing you're ready to release control over in the comments below. Who knows, your story might inspire someone else to do the same. Remember, life is unpredictable, and that's okay. You don't have to control everything to live a meaningful, fulfilling life. By focusing on what's within your power and letting go of the rest, you create space for peace, resilience, and growth. Let's practice that together, one moment, one choice at a time. Belief number 4, failure is permanent. Do you ever avoid taking risks because you're afraid of failing? Maybe it's a project you've been thinking about starting, a conversation you've been avoiding, or a goal that feels just a little too big. That fear of failure, it's powerful, isn't it? It creeps in and tells you that if you try and don't succeed, it's game over. No second chances, no way to recover. This belief, failure is permanent, is one of the most limiting stories we tell ourselves. It convinces us that mistakes define us and that any misstep will leave a permanent mark on who we are. But here's the thing, this belief doesn't protect us. It traps us. When we live in fear of failure, we stop taking chances, and when we stop taking chances, we stop growing. Think about it. How many opportunities have you let pass by because you didn't want to risk failing? Maybe it was a job you didn't apply for, a skill you didn't learn, or a relationship you didn't pursue. At the time, it might have felt like the safer choice, but in the long run, those missed opportunities can weigh just as heavily as failure itself. The Stoics had a completely different way of looking at failure. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "What stands in the way becomes the way." In other words, obstacles, including failure, aren't roadblocks. They're stepping stones. Each challenge, each setback, is an opportunity to learn, grow, and adapt. It's not the failure itself that matters. It's how you respond to it. Let me share a story to bring this idea to life. Imagine someone starting a small business. They're passionate, they've done their homework, and they pour their heart into it. But after a year, things don't go as planned. The business struggles, and eventually, they have to close it down. At first, they feel crushed, like they've failed not just the business, but themselves. But here's where the story shifts. Instead of letting that failure define them, they take what they've learned and try again. They start a new business, this time with the experience of what didn't work before. Slowly, they begin to see success, not in spite of their earlier failure, but because of it. The lessons they learned, the resilience they built, it all became the foundation for something greater. Now, let's flip this around. What if they had let the fear of failure stop them from trying in the first place? What if they'd never started that first business because they were too afraid it might fail? They would have missed out, not just on the eventual success, but on the growth and knowledge that came from the journey itself. This is the key. Failure isn't the end of the story unless you let it be. It's just one chapter. When you see it as permanent, you close the book too early. But when you see it as a stepping stone, you open the door to possibilities you might never have imagined. Here's something to consider. The most successful people in any field, whether it's business, art, sports, or anything else, have all faced failure. The difference is that they didn't stop there. They used their setbacks to fuel their progress. Thomas Edison famously said, "I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." That mindset of seeing failure as a necessary part of growth is what separates those who move forward from those who stay stuck. So how can you start reframing failure in your own life? First, recognize that it's a natural part of learning. When a child learns to walk, they fall countless times. But they don't sit down and say, "Well, I guess walking isn't for me." They get back up, they try again, and eventually they succeed. As adults, we tend to lose that resilience, but it's still within us. We just have to tap into it. Next, focus on what you can learn from failure. Every setback carries a lesson if you're willing to look for it. Maybe it's about preparation, timing, or persistence. Whatever it is, take the time to reflect and ask yourself, what can I do differently next time? Finally, remember that failure is not a reflection of your worth. It's a moment, not a definition. Just because something didn't work out doesn't mean you're a failure. It means you're human. And being human means trying, falling, and getting back up. Let me ask you, how can you reframe failure as a stepping stone instead of a dead end? What's one setback you've experienced that, looking back, taught you something valuable? Take a moment to reflect on that. If you're comfortable, share your story in the comments. You never know who you might inspire. Failure is never as permanent as it feels in the moment. It's a chapter, not the whole book. And the sooner we embrace that, the sooner we can move forward, not in fear, but with courage and curiosity. So the next time you face a challenge, remember Marcus Aurelius's words, "What stands in the way becomes the way." You're not defined by your failures, you're defined by what you do next. Let's take that next step, together. Belief number 5, other people define my worth. Do you ever feel like your value depends on what others think of you? Maybe it's the way a friend reacts to your decisions, a boss's opinion about your work, or even the number of likes a social media post gets. It's that nagging thought that if someone else doesn't approve, then maybe you're not enough. This belief, other people define my worth, is more common than we'd like to admit. It's easy to fall into the trap of measuring ourselves by external opinions. After all, from a young age, we're taught to seek approval from parents, teachers, peers, and society at large. But over time, this dependency can start to feel like a cage. When your self-worth is tied to what others think, you're handing over control of your happiness to people who might not truly understand or value who you are. Think about how this plays out in everyday life. Maybe you've held back from sharing an idea at work because you worried it wouldn't be well received, or you changed your opinion in a conversation just to fit in. Perhaps you felt unworthy because of criticism, even if it wasn't constructive. It's exhausting, isn't it? Constantly scanning for approval, fearing judgment, and basing your self-esteem on factors outside your control. The problem with this belief is that it creates a cycle of dependency. When you rely on others to validate your worth, you give them the power to define it, and no matter how much approval you get, it's never enough, because external validation is fleeting. One compliment might lift you up momentarily, but one piece of criticism can send you spiraling. This is where Stoic philosophy offers a liberating perspective. Epictetus reminds us, it's not what happens to you, but how you react that matters. Your worth isn't determined by what someone says or thinks. It's determined by how you choose to see yourself and respond to the world. Let's consider a practical example. Imagine you've worked hard on a project and you're proud of the effort you've put in. But when you present it, someone offers harsh criticism. If you believe your worth is tied to their opinion, you might start doubting your abilities, even if their feedback wasn't fair or accurate. Now, imagine responding differently. Instead of internalizing the criticism, you acknowledge it, take what's useful, and let the rest go. You remind yourself that your value isn't up for debate. It's something you define, not something others hand to you. This shift isn't about ignoring feedback or living in denial. It's about discerning what's helpful and what isn't, and refusing to let external opinions dictate your self-esteem. Think about how much freedom this mindset could bring. When you stop relying on others to define your worth, you free yourself from their expectations. You start making choices based on your values, not on what will please others. You become more authentic, more confident, and more at peace. Of course, this is easier said than done. Breaking free from the need for external validation takes practice. One way to start is by reflecting on your values. What truly matters to you? What qualities or actions do you believe make someone valuable? Chances are they have nothing to do with popularity, approval, or other people's opinions. Another strategy is to practice self-affirmation. When you catch yourself seeking validation, pause and ask, am I doing this because it aligns with my values, or because I want approval? If it's the latter, remind yourself that your worth isn't tied to the outcome. You're valuable simply because you're you, not because of what anyone else thinks. It's also helpful to remember that no one's opinion is absolute. People's judgments are often based on their own biases, experiences, and insecurities. What someone thinks of you says more about them than it does about you. Let me ask you this. Who defines your worth, you or someone else? Take a moment to reflect. If it's been others up until now, what would it look like to take that power back? Imagine making choices that feel right to you, regardless of how they're perceived. Imagine finding confidence not in what others say, but in how you live according to your values. If this belief resonates with you, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Share your experiences in the comments. When have you felt defined by others, and how did you handle it? Your story might inspire someone else to rethink their own beliefs. You're more than what others think of you. Your worth isn't something they give, it's something you create. The moment you start living for yourself instead of for their approval, you'll realize that you've been enough all along. So let's stop measuring ourselves by someone else's yardstick. Let's define our worth on our own terms. Because when you know your own value, no one else's opinion can take it away. Belief number 6, I can't change who I am. Have you ever thought, this is just who I am, I can't change? Maybe it was after making the same mistake for the 3rd or 4th time. Or perhaps it was when you tried to break a bad habit but gave up, telling yourself that change just isn't possible for you. That thought, the belief that you're fixed in place, can feel so final, can't it? Like there's a wall between who you are now and who you want to become. This belief, I can't change who I am, might feel like a shield at first. It protects you from the discomfort of trying and failing. But over time, it becomes a prison. It keeps you stuck, holding on to old patterns and missed opportunities for growth. And the longer you believe it, the harder it becomes to imagine anything different. But here's the truth. You are not a finished product. No one is. Life itself is a process of constant change, and we are part of that process. Seneca, the Stoic philosopher, put it beautifully when he said, "Every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end." In other words, change is not only possible, it's inevitable. The question isn't whether you can change, it's whether you're willing to embrace it. Think about how this belief limits personal growth. When you tell yourself you can't change, you close the door to possibility. You stop trying to learn new skills, improve relationships, or overcome challenges because you assume it's pointless. But what if it's not? What if, instead of being fixed in place, you saw yourself as a work in progress, someone who can learn, adapt, and grow, one small step at a time? Let's consider an example. Imagine someone who struggles with being disorganized. Their desk is a mess, they miss deadlines, and they constantly feel overwhelmed. After years of frustration, they tell themselves, "I'm just not a naturally organized person. This is who I am." But then one day, they decide to try something different. They start small, setting aside 5 minutes each day to clear their workspace. Then they begin using a planner to track their tasks. Over time, these small actions build momentum, and before they know it, they're managing their time better and feeling more in control. The change didn't happen overnight, and it didn't require them to become a completely different person. It happened through consistent effort, one small step at a time. This is the key to breaking free from the belief that you can't change. It's not about transforming everything all at once. It's about starting small and building from there. The Stoics believed that growth comes from focusing on what's within your control. You can't rewrite the past, and you can't predict the future, but you can choose your actions in the present. Here's something to try. Think about one thing you'd like to change about yourself. It doesn't have to be big. Maybe it's being more patient, sticking to a routine, or speaking up for yourself more often. Now ask yourself, what's one small step I can take today to move closer to that goal? It might be as simple as taking a deep breath before reacting, setting an alarm to remind yourself to start a task, or saying no to something that doesn't serve you. These small steps might seem insignificant at first, but they add up. Each one builds confidence and shows you that change is possible. And the more you practice, the more those small actions become habits, and those habits become part of who you are. It's also important to give yourself grace along the way. Change isn't a straight line, it's a journey with ups and downs. There will be days when it feels hard, and that voice in your head says, "See, I told you this isn't who you are." When that happens, remind yourself that setbacks are part of the process. They don't erase your progress. They teach you resilience. Let me ask you, what's one thing you'd like to change about yourself today? Maybe it's something you've been putting off because it feels too daunting or because you've convinced yourself it's not possible. But what if it is? What if all it takes is one small step to get started? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Share in the comments what you'd like to work on and the first step you're planning to take. Remember, you're not alone in this. Everyone is on their own journey of growth and self-improvement. You are not bound by who you were yesterday. You are not defined by your mistakes or your past. You are a work in progress, capable of change, growth, and transformation. So let's rewrite the story together. Let's embrace the fact that every moment is a new beginning, and with each step forward, you're creating the person you want to become. Change is not only possible, it's part of who you are. You've got this. Let's take that first step today. Belief number 7. I'll be happy when... Do you ever postpone happiness, thinking it depends on achieving something? Maybe it's that promotion at work, buying your dream house, or reaching a certain level of success. You tell yourself, "I'll be happy when this happens." And in the meantime, life feels like a waiting game, filled with anxiety, dissatisfaction, and the nagging thought that you're not there yet. This belief, "I'll be happy when," might feel motivating at first, like it's pushing you toward your goals. But the truth is, it often creates more stress than joy. When you tie your happiness to a future event, you rob yourself of the ability to appreciate the present moment. And even when you finally achieve that milestone, the happiness it brings is often fleeting. Why? Because another when quickly takes its place. Think about it. How many times have you reached a goal only to immediately set your sights on the next one? Maybe you graduated college and thought, "I'll be happy when I land a good job." Then you got the job and thought, "I'll be happy when I get promoted." It's like chasing the horizon. You can see it, but you never actually reach it. This belief creates a cycle of dissatisfaction. Instead of enjoying the journey, you're constantly focused on what's missing. And the more you chase happiness in the future, the harder it becomes to feel content in the present. The Stoics had a profound way of looking at this. They believed that happiness isn't something you find out there. It's something you cultivate within yourself, right here, right now. Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." In other words, joy isn't tied to external circumstances. It's a state of mind you can create, regardless of what's happening around you. Let's consider an example. Imagine someone working tirelessly to buy their dream home. They sacrifice vacations, time with family, and even their health, believing that once they have the house, they'll finally be happy. But when they move in, the joy is short-lived. Soon, they're worrying about renovations, mortgages, or comparing their home to someone else's. What they thought would bring lasting happiness becomes just another item on the to-do list. Now compare that to someone who chooses to find joy in the process. They might still have the same goal of buying a home, but they don't let it overshadow their present life. They savor the little moments, spending time with loved ones, enjoying simple pleasures, and appreciating what they already have. When they finally reach their goal, it's the cherry on top, not the sole source of their happiness. The key difference is where their focus lies. The first person places all their happiness in the future, while the second finds it in the here and now. So how can we shift our mindset to break free from the "I'll be happy when" trap? It starts with gratitude. Instead of fixating on what's missing, take a moment to appreciate what you already have. This doesn't mean you stop striving for your goals. It means you don't let them overshadow the present. Another powerful practice is mindfulness. The Stoics believed in fully experiencing the present moment, no matter how ordinary it might seem. Epictetus said, "He is a wise man who does not grieve for the things which he has not, but rejoices for those which he has." When you focus on the here and now, you start to notice the beauty in the small things. A conversation with a friend, the warmth of the sun on your face, or even the satisfaction of completing a task. Here's something to try. The next time you catch yourself saying, "I'll be happy when," stop and ask yourself, what can I appreciate right now? It might be something as simple as a good cup of coffee or the fact that you're taking steps toward your goals. By shifting your focus to the present, you remind yourself that happiness isn't something you have to wait for. It's something you can choose in each moment. Let me ask you, what's something you can appreciate in your life right now? Maybe it's a relationship, a small victory, or even just the fact that you're here, learning and growing. Take a moment to reflect on that, and if you'd like, share it in the comments below. Your gratitude might inspire someone else to see the good in their own life. You don't have to wait for happiness. You don't have to tie it to a future milestone or achievement. It's already here, waiting for you to notice it. When you let go of the belief that happiness is somewhere out there, you'll find that it's been within you all along. So let's stop chasing the horizon and start appreciating the view right where we are. Because the present moment is the only one we truly have, and it's full of opportunities for joy if we're willing to see them. Belief number 8. Life is supposed to be easy. Do you ever feel frustrated when life gets tough? Maybe you've thought, why is this happening to me? Shouldn't things just work out? It's a natural reaction, especially when things feel overwhelming. But beneath that frustration lies a common belief. Life is supposed to be easy. And when reality doesn't align with that expectation, it can leave us feeling stuck, disheartened, or even defeated. This belief, as comforting as it might seem on the surface, can actually do more harm than good. Why? Because it creates a false expectation that smooth sailing is the default, and that struggles are somehow an exception or even a failure. But life, real life, isn't like that. Challenges, setbacks, and obstacles are a natural part of the human experience. And when we resist them, we miss out on the growth and resilience they can bring. Think about how this belief leads to avoidance. When we expect life to be easy, we're more likely to shy away from anything that feels hard. We might avoid taking risks, starting something new, or confronting difficult situations because we think, it shouldn't be this difficult, maybe it's not meant to be. But in doing so, we limit ourselves. We miss out on opportunities to grow, learn, and achieve things that truly matter. The Stoics had a very different perspective on life's challenges. Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, wrote, "The art of living is more like wrestling than dancing." What he meant is that life isn't about avoiding struggle, it's about engaging with it, adapting, and growing stronger through the effort. Wrestling is messy, unpredictable, and requires resilience, but it's also where you find your strength. Let's look at a real-life example. Imagine someone who dreams of becoming a writer. At first, they're excited, envisioning the joy of seeing their work published. But as they start the process, they hit roadblocks, writer's block, rejection letters, self-doubt. If they hold on to the belief that life is supposed to be easy, they might give up, thinking, maybe I'm not cut out for this. Now consider someone with a different mindset. They expect challenges and embrace them as part of the journey. They treat every rejection as a lesson, every moment of doubt as an opportunity to grow. Slowly but surely, they improve. Eventually, their persistence pays off, and they achieve their dream, not in spite of the challenges, but because of them. This shift in perspective, from avoiding hardship to embracing it, is at the heart of Stoic philosophy. Epictetus reminds us, difficulties show a person's character. So, when trouble comes, think of yourself as being tested. Challenges aren't barriers. They're opportunities to discover your own strength and resilience. So how do we start shifting our mindset? It begins with accepting that struggle is a natural and necessary part of life. Instead of resisting it, we can lean into it. When you encounter a tough situation, ask yourself, what can I learn from this? How can I grow? This doesn't mean you have to enjoy every hardship. It simply means you recognize its value. Another helpful practice is reframing your perspective on effort. Often, we think that if something is hard, it's a sign we're doing it wrong. But in reality, effort is often a sign that we're on the right track. Whether it's learning a new skill, building a relationship, or pursuing a goal, the effort you put in is what makes the reward meaningful. Think about a time in your life when you faced a significant challenge. Maybe it was finishing a degree, recovering from a setback, or navigating a difficult relationship. At the time, it might have felt overwhelming. But looking back, how did that experience shape you? What did you learn about yourself? Chances are, those challenges helped you grow in ways you wouldn't have if life had been easy. Now let me ask you, what challenge has shaped you the most? What's one difficult experience that, in hindsight, helped you become stronger or wiser? Take a moment to reflect on that. And if you feel comfortable, share your story in the comments. Your perspective might inspire someone else who's currently facing their own struggles. Life isn't supposed to be easy, and that's okay. The challenges we face aren't obstacles. They're opportunities to grow, to learn, and to become more resilient. When we stop expecting life to be smooth and start embracing its messiness, we find strength we didn't know we had. So the next time you're faced with a tough situation, remember Marcus Aurelius's words. The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. Instead of asking, why is this so hard? Try asking, what is this teaching me? You're stronger than you think. And with every challenge you face, you're building that strength, one step at a time. Let's embrace life's wrestling match together and come out stronger on the other side. As we wrap up this journey together, I want to leave you with something important. These beliefs we've talked about, they don't define you. They're just stories. Stories you've told yourself, or maybe ones you've picked up along the way. And the best part about stories, they can be rewritten. Every belief that holds you back is just an invitation to grow. You have the power to challenge them, to reshape them, and to create a mindset that works for you, not against you. It doesn't have to happen all at once. Change takes time, but it starts with one small step. So here's my challenge for you. Start small. Choose one belief, just one, that resonated with you today, and take the first step to challenge it. Maybe it's questioning the thought that you're not good enough, or reminding yourself that success isn't about external validation. Whatever it is, take it on with curiosity and compassion. You don't have to have all the answers right now. Growth isn't about perfection, it's about progress. And every small action you take is proof that you're capable of change. If this video resonated with you, I'd love for you to share it. Maybe there's someone in your life who's struggling with their own hidden beliefs, and this could be the spark they need to start their own journey. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss future videos. Together, we'll keep exploring the wisdom of Stoicism and how it can transform the way we live. Before you go, I want to hear from you. What belief are you ready to challenge today? What small step are you going to take to rewrite your story? Share it in the comments. I'd love to read about your journey, and you never know who your words might inspire. Remember, the path to growth isn't always easy, but it's always worth it. Life's challenges are opportunities in disguise, and with every step forward, you're building the person you want to become. If you're finding this helpful so far, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell. It's a simple way to stay connected and keep exploring these powerful ideas together.